with me now is that man himself.
What a great question, Chris.
Well,
I mean, before I arrived here yesterday, people were saying, would they even let me in through the front door? And now you're saying, would you let me in the party?
Would you, yes or no? Come on, world exclusive.
What party?
Will you join it?
Would I want to join a party that's put the tax rate up to the highest in over 70 years, that has allowed net migration to run at over 500,000 a year, that has not used Brexit to deregulate and help small businesses? No, no and no.
But you're here as a journalist, you're here talking about things.
Yes.
Join the Tories, do things.
Well, I tell you what, I achieved a lot more outside of the Tory party than I ever could have done from within it. And actually, you know, what I'm seeing here are ideas that I've talked about. You know, from 2019, when net zero was passed into law without even a vote.
Without a vote, crucial.
I've said the agenda's mad, it's unfair. If you're going to do this to us, we should have a referendum on it. Yeah. I've been arguing about ECHR. It should have been part of the Brexit deal. So what I'm seeing, Chris, I'm seeing a wing of the Conservative Party who are now basically saying what I've been saying for many, many years.
That's why they want you back in.
And so, well, half the party would love me in, the other half would blackball me. But look, at the moment, I wouldn't know what party it is. Yeah,
I did ask him at the PM personally, do you want to have a referendum on net zero 2 weeks ago in that press conference, and he said we've had enough referendums. I mean, everyone's so scarred by the one you were part of in 2016.
Enough of the people having a different view to Westminster. I mean, would Brexit ever have happened without a referendum? The answer is no. And if we had referendums on net migration figures, on net zero figures, we would get very, very different answers. Yeah. And it's happening in Australia right now, where the Australian government have put forward a referendum that they're about to lose very, very heavily. The centre ground of public opinion in this country actually is a common sense view on most things. And I don't think our MPs or most of our mainstream media have ever been more detached from public opinion than they are.
Of course, this Prime Minister was not voted in by the members. He was voted not to be here, but he is here first time. I asked him about that, and he said, well, it's good to be here, and he sort of brushed it off. I asked him particularly also about the issue of ECHR withdrawal, the European Convention of Human Rights. Now, 3 cabinet ministers said it would be on the table in interviews at the weekend. That means it's an agreed line by Downing Street. If more than one says it is agreed.
Yeah, they'll fudge it.
He wouldn't go there. He then instead referred to the small boats issue and how they've cut the numbers over the channel by 20%. What's your view? Will the Tory party, or should they in fact fight on a policy of withdrawal at the next election?
On the small boats, by the way, it's only down about 18%. We've had the worst summer in years. It's all about weather.
It's not as bad as last summer.
The weather's been, because the weather's been so bad.
Okay.
That's why. The last few days have been calm. We've had, 1,300 come in the last 4 days. So I wouldn't buy any of that, not for one moment. Okay. In fact, yesterday, 500 came.
But on ECHR withdrawal?
On ECHR, the big one. Of course, they will put forward, at the next election, we're going to renegotiate with the ECHR and give you a better deal, and if we don't get one, we'll withdraw. That's what they'll tell the British public. It's rather like Brexit. They won't go the whole way, but to me, this should have been part of leaving the European institutions. And I tell you what, if we had a referendum on that, I know the result already.
Do you see it as the second part of that Brexit vote?
Very much so. Very much so. Brexit will not be complete, all the while we're under the auspices of that ridiculous court.
Because now we're stuck with this Rwanda case being stuck in the courts.
We saw this, didn't we? One judge, one so-called judge.
An unknown judge.
Unknown, and probably not even legally qualified.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, what we do know is most people on the European Court are not judges, they're jurists. They're not even legally.
As we understand judges in our country, it's different.
The whole thing's a farce.
And inflation, I also remember, have you had a mortgage? He has had one. Wasn't able to say, have you got one now? Maybe not, given the homes he's got in LA, Yorkshire and London. He called inflation evil. That's a big word in politics. The evil we must defeat. And
why doesn't he replace the governor of the Bank of England? Because when some of us were screaming, and Liam Halligan in particular, and I was with him, we were screaming 2 years ago from the sidelines, inflation is about to run away, you need to raise interest rates. And Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, whose sole job for £500,000 a year is to control inflation, said inflation is not happening. Then it happens. It's transitory. And suddenly they start to put up the interest rates at the very moment when we shouldn't be doing it. We have been very badly let down by the FCA when it comes to banking, and by the Bank of England.
Of course, Kwasi Kwarteng had the governor in his sight, didn't he, when he became Chancellor just over a year ago, and then it all went away from that.
You see, Sunak plays safe with everything. I mean, to his credit, he's probably got the best intellect of any Prime Minister for decades. I don't think he's a thoroughly decent, nice man.
He is a decent man.
There's no question about that. But does he have that killer instinct that a leader
I'm
needs?
seeing more political stuff from him. I think this vote on net zero will be a dividing line because the party will be able to do it in the next election. The Labour MPs want you to not get out.
If he's got the guts to do it. I mean, yes, I agree with you. I mean,
it's political. It's good.
I mean, even the traffic stuff, 20-mile-an-hour zones and everything else. Why didn't they stop the ULEZ extension? They could have done that.
Well, in fact, the government's written to towns saying how you're going to deal with it, how you're going to bring down emissions in parts of the country.
So
forcing them almost.
So they're all over the place. They're all over the place. And I think, whilst he has done some good things, talking about traffic, net zero, it all looks a bit reactive, Chris.
Yeah, but I think it is. But I think we are seeing finally a bit of kind of red tooth and claw from a PM who's been, for 10 months quite operational, quite COO, not chairman, that kind of thing.
But to overturn a 20-point lead, right? It's down to 10 now, if you believe that.
Could be an outlier.
Whatever. But to overturn that is going to need something very bold, very decisive. I just don't see that as being part of his personality.
Rumours in this big spoon, we're looking now into the speech tomorrow, rumours of a ban on vaping or the throwaway vapes.
More big state.
More bans. I mean, we heard Liz Truss yesterday, didn't we, saying, stop banning stuff, be the party of not banning stuff.
I mean, this is the most unconservative party government in history. They put taxes up, the state gets bigger, we get surveilled by cameras wherever we go. It doesn't reduce crime at all. They remove our choice. I'm sick of nanny big state governments. This is not.
But we've weaned onto it by this.
This is not a conservative government. It's a social democrat.
They have had two big black swan events that weren't forecast, of course, COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine, neither of which were forecast at all. And that's £500 billion more cost this country. So they would say that's why we can't do what you want to do on tax.
Why are there 5.3 million people of working age not working? That figure has rocketed.
Yeah. But anyway, Mark, you're still there in the studio. Do you have a quick question?
Well, yeah, indeed, because you're talking about red tooth and claw, you're talking about politics, and of course he's been trying to get the agenda away from HS2, which has dominated the sort of journalistic and noises off. Now, we've got Jeremy Hunt having spoken at a fringe event, Centre for Policy Studies, talking about the Conservative Mayor of West Midlands, Andy Street, who's been criticising the government. Now, Mr Hunt has said he's a fantastic mayor, but he's speculating what he thinks a decision might be rather than talking about what the actual decision may be. Now, this brings into question the way that the government's handled this whole issue of HS2 and how it's allowed, really, the agenda to be taken over on the rail line.
What's happened? Well, as I understand it, Mark, what happened is, now, you and I are old enough to know how you deal with these issues if you're in government. You say it's a matter for the next fiscal event, the autumn statement in middle of November. But what's happening is because the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, is looking at what they plan for the autumn statement right now, HS2 is so big, that means the government must make clear to OBR whether the northern leg goes ahead between Birmingham and Manchester. And because that choice must be made now in government, that's why this debate is happening, because it really is happening behind the scenes. Now, I was with the Chancellor last night. He made very clear no choices made on this yet, and that's why he can say today to Andy Street, don't do it. But the mood music is they want to scrap it, take £10 billion and link the Hull, Liverpool, Manchester, get that line worked out. But for me, looking at the politics of it, the government has spent billions and billions tunnelling under the south to keep the views nice for southern Tories. They get to Birmingham and they can't afford to link the north. It is a disgrace, frankly, to the levelling up agenda. But Nigel, what's your take?
It's remarkable, isn't it? Here we are in Manchester with speculation that the Manchester leg may not go ahead. He can't answer a straight question. I wonder whether
there's no answer yet.
I wonder whether he'll even give an answer tomorrow in his speech. And it is appalling politics to allow all the big stuff they want to say this week to be overshadowed by this. Personally, I've been against it right from the start. From Euston.
Why is that? Because it's a matter of capacity, not just speed.
Yeah, it's 2 hours, 7 minutes from Euston to Manchester Piccadilly, right into the heart of the business district. Speed's not the issue. Longer platforms, more capacity, yes. But the real problem in the north, I drove once from Blackpool to Hull. It's almost impossible. And there was no train option. Getting east-west across the Pennines, from Yorkshire to Lancashire, that's where the...
Well, I put a family member on the train on the Northern Line to Leeds yesterday, and it's an old diesel. It wasn't what you expect in the south of England, I've got to be honest with you. And it's not fair.
No, for a fraction of the money, you could link up big cities in the north of England. That makes far more sense to me.
Yeah, we might see something tomorrow. I think they are stuck by this problem. They've got to deal with the OBR. They are making a choice right now and doing it in real time.
What a mess, though.
That's a mess. Big issues here, Mark.
Yeah, Chris, very quick question to finish with. We were being told yesterday that there might be an emergency cabinet meeting there in Manchester today. We understand that's not taking place. Is that your understanding there?
That is it. I think the speculation is running away with itself, as it can do in this big old railway shed in here in mid-Manchester. I think that's still the case. OK, Chris, and also your team there in Manchester, thanks for taking us through that keynote speech that we got ahead and the interview there. Thank you very much indeed.